We are recording. Quick update. Yeah, quick update. So Angie's going down to get checked out today to find out if this is a serious pneumonia or some sort of cold or whatever.
Or something contagious that we all
not
think
doing,
better.
yeah, it went from doing okay to not doing okay now. So shoot her an email or let her know you're thinking of her. I reached out to her today to find out if she needs anything, and I'll let you guys know as we hear stuff. So it's kind of the update there. Thursday's our office meeting. We'll be announcing employee or team member of the month and top sales. And then we're also going to announce a promotional bonus for Christmas that's starting Thursday. And no, I won't tell you what it is yet. Because I don't know what it is yet.
I don't know what it is. That's a good reason not to tell somebody.
Right. Other than that, all right.
What happened there? There we are. Good morning, class.
Good morning, Gary.
Good morning, Gary.
Sounded like no. Where's all your green crap and your cracked face? Any other call for action? If you guys would do those calls for action, that would
this laptop's dying. I can plug it in. I can sit closer. So.
Plus you can't see.
Hey, David.
I got to get right here for a second.
Training.
I'd like to be able to see what I'm doing training.
Look up.
Safari, oh, Mac, oh. Here's my full screen icon. Anybody remember what paragraph or page or anything we were on?
Yeah,
I do. And I can't believe I do. I just can't, I tell you. Maybe that was a coffee stall, you don't know. Paragraph 8, we stopped on paragraph 8. Does anybody remember what the most important thing to remember about paragraph 8, in my opinion, was, which I closed with it last week? I know it was a whole you can do this. 8A.
What was the question?
There.
What's the most
Important thing to remember about paragraph, you're talking about stuff like, and it happens all the time, like, why doesn't my number add up? Why do I put 200 here and it wants to say 250 here? Yeah. The 8A is the one that I can't tell you how many times we've stopped just short of arbitration over trying to figure out 8A, which says, note to buyer and seller, and it should say, and agents, probably in there. Items listed as included or excluded in the MLS flyers or marketing materials are not included in the purchase price or excluded from the sale unless specified in paragraph 8, B, or C.
We went through a meditation over that.
Yeah, right. Yep. Happens, yeah. That's it.
Because it was listed in the MLS.
Yeah, where's that chandelier you guys took a picture of? Yeah.
Just because the MLS is making for the contract.
We went to mitigation over it.
Right, yeah. So who knows that? Everybody in here, raise your hand. Everybody else in real estate, be quiet. They don't know. They don't read.
We did win.
The hell? Man, that's high. All righty. Right there. Full screen, yeah. So paragraph 8B, items included in sale, and C, items excluded from sale. I got a catch-all phrase I've used in there for years. It just says seller to provide list if any, and that way if there is stuff, instead of me trying to guess what it is, they can just tell me if they're and it's also like a prompt for the other side to like, hey, if you're taking that fountain, tell me. You know, if you're leaving that fountain, tell me. Maybe we don't want it. And that happens. That happens all the time. 2000s are the big one. That water feature stuff that's not really attached. It's just sitting there, but it weighs 800 pounds. We run into that a lot. People wonder, what are you doing with that fountain? If the buyer wants the fountain, put it in. You know, this is your big chance right here to kind of flesh out that personal property side transaction. In my template, I guess I didn't pull the template in on this, and I've been saying that every time I open this form. It says, where are you, little buddy? Right there where it says all stoves, all refrigerators, all washers and dryers. I just have all those checked in my template. So when I pull it in there to create my transaction, that stuff's all just checked. I don't have to remember it. And to me, checking boxes helps me remember stuff. Like I'm going through the contract with the buyers. Maybe we're sitting in front of the screen like this, and they're getting ready to make their offer, and we're going through the contract, flushing it out, filling it out. And I come to that, I know that I got all those boxes checked, I kind of got to deal with it. And if there isn't a washer and dryer, and I know it because we've been there, I can always uncheck that box, just clean it up a little bit. But if you check that box and it says all stoves, all refrigerators, all washer and dryers, and there aren't any, you still have all the stoves, all the refrigerators, and all the washers and dryers that were in that house, right? I mean, it's not a terrible thing to just leave that check. Items excluded from sale. This is where CAR gave us a little help here because we went back and forth over this a lot too over the years with flat screen TVs. I still remember the first houses where we went into, and we had to deal with flat screen TVs for some reason. We're in Santa Maria. Everybody up here was wondering what to do with them. Everybody in Santa Maria went out and bought one. I don't know if it's because they had a Costco. Well, but they're all over the fireplace too. I'm sure that can't be good for your television unless it's protected from a fire. But paragraph C, items excluded from sale, they addressed that whole thing about we're keeping our flat screen, but we're leaving you all the brackets. And sometimes we fight over the brackets, sometimes we fight for the brackets. So right in 8C, right in the last in bold print down there, they were smart enough to bold it. Brackets attached to walls, floors, or ceilings for any such component, and that's right in where it talks about the AV stuff, audio, video components. Any such component, furniture, or item shall remain with property.
Trina's online, and I have to share the screen. Sorry, Trina.
You can hear me, can't you? Just refer to the last offer you wrote. It's probably filled out. Did she let you know? Or thanks for letting us know.
Thank you. Sorry, I have to find the mute button.
All right, there you go.
Don't be afraid to say something. If we're 20 minutes into it and you can't see the screen, so I can't see the screen.
It's only been 9 minutes.
We're not backing up. I'm just saying. So, well, the rest of you got that. Awesome. To continue with that line, there's a checkbox in it. Brackets attached to walls, floors, or ceilings for any such component, any of that AV stuff. Furniture or items shall remain with the property. That's the default. They're going to stay if you forget to check the box. Or will be removed, and holes or other damage shall be repaired but not painted. I don't know where they got the not painted. Like, you got some paint? Get that.
If that's hazardous material, your paint is.
Pardon?
That's hazardous material, so you gotta get rid of it. You get rid of it as soon as you can.
So you're going to leave a big spackle spot?
Yeah. Little primer and walk away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And everything that happens in all these contracts, in fact, I don't know why I felt compelled to say this right then, right now, is unless otherwise agreed. I mean, there's a ton of pre-printed stuff here and a lot of check boxes, but you can compose. CAR and everybody else in the entire industry that has ever managed anything discourages it, but you can compose. You can put in here somewhere. It's like, I need you to paint the living room or something. I mean, you can write stuff in. For sure.
Write stuff in or attach it as an addendum?
Write it in if it'll fit. If it won't fit, you could attach it as an addendum. Anybody see that list of new forms coming out? And I think it's December, which is probably, I think, going to be helpful because they talk about amending and addending and appending and all that stuff all the time. And we have one form that does it, the addendum form, the ADM one. So they're making a new form that's kind of an amendment form. So the addendum form, you put stuff on it and basically everybody signs for receipt. But the problem with that form is you didn't necessarily get agreement. It's not clear how it works because it's a fit-all form. So they're coming out with a new form that's actually got a place for people to agree to the foregoing on it. And then they added an entire other paragraph and added a lot. I think that's all they need. So there's anyway, new stuff coming out in December that may be helpful with our transactions moving forward. But yeah, that's what addendums are for. If it won't fit in here, then attach the addendum. And I think that's a good point too. It's using attach as kind of a keyword. Is if you got to attach it, hey, you got to say in the contract somewhere that there's something else that goes with it, because it happens all the time. I just did it with a seller's intent to exchange. I think we didn't know the guy was doing an exchange till about a week later. So it's a standalone document. We put in the recital on the document that it was attached to the original contract we had, all the stuff we've done up to that point. But nowhere in the contract is there a box check that says, oh, by the way, see the seller's intent to exchange. So when you're going to attach stuff and make it part of your offer, make sure you actually physically attach it, which is right there, paragraph 5, addenda and advisory. So if you're going to attach an addendum, you just click that. Say which one it is and make it happen. And that's what they're for, basically, to make room to write, because they took all the room to write out of the contract.
Gary, I got a question for you. My very first sale I ever made was a trust. And in that trust, these people had a hidden floor safe. They didn't want it mentioned in anything because it was hidden. They didn't want all these real estate agents walking through and seeing it. So we never mentioned anything about it. Well, later on, I hear I was wrong. I should have brought it up in the paperwork that there was a hidden safe. What's your thoughts on that? What's the law say about that? Because you don't, it's no reason to have it hidden if everybody knows about it.
Yeah, was it built in?
Yes.
Sometimes they'll pour them in the slab.
It was poured in the slab.
So it goes with the house. I mean, you can't get it out.
You can't take it out, no. But it was hidden where you'd have to know it was there to ever locate it.
Disclose it in the TDS.
No.
Yeah, that's what I think. I mean, it doesn't have to be part of the contract necessarily, because you don't have to address it. It's already a fixture that's going with the property, that whole thing. But what do you want to do? Just surprise them, or just never tell them? And then when they went to add on, find out you got to say.
That's probably what's going to happen. I mean, laying on top of the safe was the combination. That was the last I saw of it. We covered it back up and walked away.
They just left it like that. You said if you want to use it, use it.
Well, how did I know it was there? I was just the agent. I didn't find out about it till way after it was almost to close.
Oh, you didn't know about it?
No.
Oh, it was almost to close.
Yeah, almost.
You
Like
gotta
4
learn to
days.
justify better.
4 days away. Well, this may come up again.
I didn't find out about it till later.
Well, I didn't know about it till, yeah, 4 days.
You can't lie.
4 days before closure, I find out that there was a safe in there. I get a phone
Before
call.
what? Oh,
4 days before it closed, the daughter called and said, "Oh, did you get the combination to the safe?" What safe? The one that's under that, and you go back through here.
yeah. The more I think about it, it's like, is it a defect? So,
No.
I mean, if you don't want to safe, then don't use it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, well, it's kind of an amenity, right? Unless you're worried about what the safe did to my slab. I mean, I can't imagine that's a deal breaker that we change the buyer's mind. Oh, safes are haunted. I mean, I don't know, where does that thing even come in there? So it's probably, the more I think about it, the more comfortable I get with it, where it's like keys to the shop. It's like, oh, hey, by the way, here's the combination of the safe. What safe? Safe in the floor in the garage. Oh, cool. Yeah, you're probably all right. Yeah, you got to disclose defects, basically material defects that would influence the buyer, the desirability of the property. And so it might influence the desirability of the property. Like Bob says, it's an amenity. It's like, hey, I really wish I had a house with a safe. Well, hey, it's your lucky day. Surprise! Safe.
Well, at the time, what I was
But it's
told.
not a defect.
No, what I was told to do, and this is what I did, is I took the combination. It was with a whole pile of keys, which I didn't even see it. And it was on a little brass paper or a brass tag. And I opened up the floor, found it, laid it on top of it, covered it up, and walked away.
Did you tell them?
Nope. It might still be there just the way it was several years ago.
What do you think? I think you can tell them now. Ah, hell, when was it? How many?
The seller should have
3 years
just
ago? What's the
closed it.
statute of limitations?
I'll wait 4 more years.
Yeah, let's wait 4 more years just for.
Well, you know, I mean, I talked to other people, brokers even, they didn't. Well, I don't know. That's all I got.
Yeah, hell, I'd tell them. Wouldn't you? I'd tell them. Take your lumps, boy. I don't think it's a problem. Hey, crap, I forgot to mention the safe. Like, that we found that we've been using it ever since. No problem. Doesn't affect me, right? Go ahead.
I think I'll just leave well enough alone.
Oh, come on. We want to see what happens.
Speakerphone.
No, you had the buyers or the seller? You had the seller.
Sellers. But my question was, do you disclose that safe that's hidden?
Yes.
Because they really didn't want all these agents to know about it.
Why?
Well, you don't put it in the MLS.
I don't know.
Oh, by the way, a safe with a combination laying on top of it is all of their valuable stuff is in it. You know, it's like, you know, if you're worried about that, get your stuff out of that safe and go put it in a safe deposit box or something, or just leave it at red.
But he's right, the seller should have just put it in the TDS, and that way whoever made the offer finds out.
Yeah, TDS doesn't go anywhere else, right? And it's not a defect, so I'm not even sure you had to disclose, but yeah, I'd mention it about the
Well,
time the
maybe
new
not
guy
everybody
owned
wants a
it.
safe in their floor. Maybe I don't want a panic room in my house.
Yeah, maybe not. Like panic rooms, like you're probably gonna find it.
Well, they'll find it. They'll find it eventually. They'll find it eventually.
Okay.
Or their kids will when they have
It's your
kids.
problem now.
How long was this thing?
A little over 3 years
You
ago.
didn't see him go like
Oh,
that.
before Hubbell.
Oh, way before Hubbell.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
That's a broker.
So, that never happened. Day after me, no one said anything.
It's just being recorded.
Yeah, it's only recorded. So everybody listening to the recording, that was just a, an example.
The test case.
May not have ever happened. We're not sure.
The scenario. That's all it was.
So speaking of closing and possession, because I don't know how else to get back to it. 9A. Linda wrote this 30 times or 40 or 500 or something, or I don't know, because she had an investor buyer writing 8 million contracts. 9A. So the default is owner occupied, right? Buyer intends to occupy the property as buyer's primary residence. It's important that you know that, especially if they're getting a loan or if they're doing an exchange or something that cares whether it's owner occupied or it's going to be an investment property. So you'll see the checkbox there says, I keep pointing at my, see right here? Can you see that? There's a business in there. Okay, working. Yeah, there you go. A little checkbox right there. A buyer does not intend to occupy. So when you're doing an exchange, you check that box. As that says, hey everybody, I'm exchanging out of a property held for the production of income and exchange IRS. I'm exchanging into a property held that's going to be non-occupied and held for the production of income. And you like all my paperwork because it all supports my exchange and what I'm trying to do here. And that's kind of the trouble with exchanges. I've always been taught the way you do all your paperwork in an exchange is you try to build it, and the accountant does the same thing, build it to withstand an audit, because there's no such thing as a bulletproof exchange, even though we do them like 1 million times a year. I've always been cautioned that the code is so complicated that, yeah, you look the other way for a minute and you could wind up, I can't remember if it's voiding or disallowing or something, the exchange, and then somebody gets potentially a really wonderful, huge tax bill. All about income tax. So make sure you got the right info in a 9A. If there's buyer moving in, now VA, FHA, all that stuff, they don't want to see a buyer does not intend to occupy. They're really interested in owner occupied stuff. So it's important. So B, C, and D. So B, seller occupied or vacant. So basically that that buyer is going to be able to move in. If you're using 9B, the intention of everybody at that point is that buyer is going to be able to move in probably the day it closes. C is the seller might be there a couple days. If the seller's going to be there for a couple days, you're working with 9C. If there's tenants in it, whether they're moving out or not, you're working with 9B. So you just got to make sure that everybody involved in crafting the offer, making the contract, signing the offer, knows what's going on there in paragraph 9. Tenant occupied property in 9B, property shall be vacant at least 5 days prior to close. Yeah, that sneaks up on one. And then there's I think there's a caveat in there somewhere. Yeah. If you're unable to deliver property vacant because of rent control or some other junk, you may be in breach of the agreement. So you got to make the agreement fit the situation. That's why you got to know what the default is. The default is not will the property be vacant, the tenant occupied property be vacant when it closes. It'll be vacant 5 days before it closes. Or you can write something else down in the box there, right? Everybody paying attention to that. And then D's got another checkbox, tenant to remain in possession. We have a form for that. So if the buyer is taking over the property with the tenants in it and becoming the new landlord, check that box. The TIP form pulls in the tenant possession form, talks about how the people are staying there after it closes. And it also requires estoppel forms to be filled out. And estoppels are forms where the tenant says, here's what I'm paying in rent, here's my bills I pay and stuff, and here's what I gave the guy for a deposit, and the tenant fills it all out. And then you give that to the landlord, landlord says, yeah, that's all correct, and he signs it, or he goes, what is he talking about? You never gave me that much money. And we find out what those two guys are thinking, because they're forced at least that day to communicate about that lease, so that the buyer coming in that's taking it with the tenants in possession knows what they're walking into as the new landlord. Any questions on paragraph?
You print that estoppel form out right here on the phones.
Yep. Yes, you can. It's in there. Tenant estoppel. There's 2 P's in estoppel and 1 L.
Who, which agent deals with the tenants if you're making an offer? Or like if it's going to be tenants in possession and you need that signed, is it?
Who signs it?
Yeah.
So who signs it?
So you were saying
there's
that
2 parties that sign
fill
it.
it out.
So the tenants fill it out. Yeah. Who's responsible for the tenants
Is it going to be the seller?
in general? I mean, if you weren't in escrow, who's responsible? The landlord. The landlord is responsible for the tenants. Right?
I'm saying who gives the form over to
I know, and this is a long
okay.
roundabout answer to it. So,
okay.
So the tenant side, who's in charge of the tenants?
Landlord,
Yeah,
seller.
and who? Yeah, the landlord, seller, landlord/seller. So who's the other guy that signs?
The
Tenant signs it and the
landlord.
landlord. Yeah. So who's handling that side of the transaction?
Selling.
Listing agent,
Listing agent.
not the selling agent. Selling agent
Not selling
represents you. But
agent.
someday they'll change that.
Is it, Gary, is it the landlord or is it the owner of the property? Because usually not, well.
Landlord is the owner. If you got a
Well,
property
sometimes,
manager, the form says landlord seller on it. So that's
Okay.
where I'd get that.
All right, gotcha.
And if the landlord says, hey, 27 of these, take it to my property manager. Yeah, just do what you're told. If you're the listing agent.
That's the comment I want to make is property management company we used to do that for.
Yeah. If the guy's got a manager, then he's going to say, I got all that. I hire that. Then go see my guy. Right. The property manager is still on the listing agent side of the deal, right? So let them handle it, but make them handle it. It's probably a little aggressive, kind of follow up. Right. Okay.
But the estoppel form is designed to bring truth to the forms that are being disclosed between the buyer and seller.
Truth to the lease.
Truth to the lease.
Nothing else. That's all that's on there is, hey, buyer, how much are you paying? Are you paying the electric? And a critical thing, right, is the deposit. It's like, how big is that deposit? We all agree on just how big that deposit is.
5,000.
Only that deposit's going to go right through escrow to the buyers.
Yeah, you might just bring it up on screen. The helpful.
The estoppel form or the,
Yes.
let's just do them both. Oops, come on, you. Everybody. Spell it right. Bada blink. See how there's 4 iterations there, so bonus question. You don't buy lunch if you get this right. Pay attention, Bob. There's 4 tenant estoppel certificates right there. Why?
One for each unit.
Duplex.
One for each unit. Why did they
I
stop
don't
at
pay for lunch.
4?
Because,
We tie.
more than
I
4,
beat you, Bob.
I don't know that.
You're there, you have it, yeah. All this stuff is residential 1 to 4, this whole residential thing, right? The 5th unit creates a commercial transaction. Look at you, good for you. You don't pay for lunch. Are you thrilled? You thought you were gonna pay, huh? Right? Good job, class, all right.
And now nobody else is gonna go because they're gonna be stuck by it.
I know who's. We didn't just invite you to lunch, you would pay it before we get. So there's an estoppel cert. But wait, there's more. Where are my forms? Oh, my forms. Hopefully it's right on the bottom. But I mean, tenant possession. Yep, see, this is an addendum to the California Residential Purchase Agreement, counteroffer number so-and-so. Like, hey, maybe the buyer, you're the listing agent, right? And the buyer says, hey, we're going to buy the house, and we just did that. In fact, the next deal I'm going to close. The landlord comes back and says, "Yeah, tell them to take the tenants. I'll take that deal, the 150,000 below list, if they take my tenants." Sometimes that's what it's worth, to not to have to notice anybody and not deal with that whole thing. I'll take that deal if they'll take my tenants. So you might attach this to a counteroffer, right? Or the one I did was mobile home purchase, manufactured home purchase agreement. So I had to check other and put the right form there. You probably beat that. Number 1, buyer shall take property subject to the rights of existing tenants. So the rights of existing tenants are in the lease, right? And then there are other legal rights, like you can only give them a 30-day notice under certain circumstances, and blah, blah, blah. There are contractual rights for the lease, there's legal rights. Will survive the close of escrow, and buyer shall take the property subject to the rights. And it says right in paragraph 1 that the deposit and stuff is going through escrow. Seller shall deliver buyer copies of all estoppel certificates sent to and received back from tenants. So the seller's taking care of that whole thing. Seller, landlord, property manager, somebody. The deal rental agreements, current income and expense statements, if they got them. Not everybody has them. Like Ma and Pa rented out their house to somebody and moved to Florida, and a lot of times they have nothing. They just got nothing. They go, I don't know. The property manager collects the rent and they send us a check. We don't know. So the seller's got to give them what they got. Landlord's got to give them what they got. Seller should give buyer written notice of any changes to leases or tenancies or new agreements to lease or rent, at least 7 days prior to any proposed changes. So when the buyer says, I'll take that deal, I'll take those tenants, and the seller says, good, here's how that whole thing works, except in about 2 weeks, I'm going to lower the rent on everybody or something crazy. I don't know what. The seller, landlord, can't change the lease from what the buyer, from what was happening the day you put the deal together, without giving the buyer notice 7 days prior to any proposed changes. Buyer's approval of rental documents and proposed changes is a contingency, because it used to be you couldn't change it without telling them, but it didn't say like, and if they don't want you to do it, you can't change it. It says that now. That if you really need to change that lease, Mr. Seller, like buyer doesn't want it. So you got to get the tenants out, or I'm not buying the house.
But Gary, the buyer can go and change that lease once he's closed escrow.
Later, yeah. Right now, the buyer is nobody. The buyer is a prospective owner and hasn't got a. But yeah, there's no reason you can't renegotiate the lease later. You're the new landlord, but you're taking the thing subject to the rights of the tenants, right? So if they got a year lease, you're in month 3. You're going to wait a while.
What is that form, Gary?
That's the tenant possession form. When you check the box that says tenants to remain in possession, that form, if it's working right, it's working better all the time, will actually migrate into your transaction. And by checking the box, you've attached it to the contract. Now, the thing to watch out for, like as the listing agent, like, your getting these offers in there, read paragraph 9 carefully, look for check boxes, you know. Especially if like you want the tenants to stay in there and they didn't check the box, you got to counter them back with, hey, you're taking the tenants, dude. Mr. and Mrs. Dude. That's right. I love the way they make all this stuff like second grade. These are my forms. Instead of the forms or forms, it's my forms. This is my account. That's what I wanted to be. It's my account. Tenant estoppel certificate. Tenant and premises. To whom it may concern, the undersigned is a tenant above premises makes following representation. So the tenant fills the whole thing out. Because we want to see what the tenant thinks is really happening here. And this will give you a little insight into the deal. When the home inspector's ready to go out and you call your seller and ask them, hey, which meter goes with which house out there? And then when the seller says, I don't know, the tenant pays the electric, maybe you could have just read the estoppel before you called and said, probably shouldn't have done that. A lot of check boxes. Who pays utility services, blah, 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 all kinds of junk on there for the tenant to fill out. Current rent, security deposit, all that stuff goes in there. And when they say you pay $700 a month because you're responsible for keeping an eye on the other house or something like that, there's room for all that stuff to fit in here so that the buyer coming in knows exactly what's going on. So we have the date and the tenant and the, I don't know why the bottom of that form was right, but you got the tenants saying what they think, the landlord deciding whether they're right or not, and see where it says manager right there, landlord or manager. So they set it up where a property manager could handle it. Receipt acknowledged by, potentially, I'd say that would be the buyer. That's where I have my buyer sign on this form, but I could be some buyer representative or something, I guess. I never did totally understand that line. Why doesn't it just say buyer? And so now you've all seen it, right? That was goal there, I'd say. Any questions on any of that stuff?
Not now.
Slow it down. Not now? Okay, cool. Yeah, you know, I mean, that's the thing, right? So you're going to write 15 offers in the next 15 weeks, you know, and the tenants aren't going to be in any of them. And in February, you write an offer where it's like, ah, crap, what's that for? We're all a phone call away. Or you could go to Forms Advisor, right, and say, I have tenants. It'll probably throw about 19 forms at you, but you'll have enough to make the deal.
At least.
At least.
I remember that estoppel term back when I took the test.
Yeah, that's some ancient old stuff. That's an old English law or something like that. Yeah, it sounds like, you know, there might be a sign, it might be red. And I had that defined to me just the other day. Somebody was talking about this stuff and defined estoppel, and I still can't remember what they said.
Well, the good thing is that title will bind you too. If you don't fill it out, they'll be bind.
Maybe. You know, I think that's a good point. I'm going to get off on another tangent just for a second. So escrow up here has got us pretty spoiled. You get an escrow down in LA. Did you do a lot of LA escrows with the REO stuff? Or no? Because a lot of that, man, when they first, about 07 or 08, you'd wind up in escrow with, you know, the title company would be somebody you heard of, but the escrow would be Susie's Escrow and Thimble Service, Redondo Beach, you know, and crap like that. And they're just pushing paper for double the price. And don't give a crap if you live or die. So yeah, down south, that kind of stuck with them. If you wind up, I'm in an escrow in Fresno right now. They're pretty much like we are. LA, there's just so many independent escrows down there. You'll have Fidelity Title and like Tanya in San Luis, all red escrow or something. Unrelated, escrow is not beholden to title and vice versa. They just do their thing. And they don't want to order the home warranties. They don't want to order the NHDs anymore. They really want to become what they were designed to be, a disinterested, stakeholding third party that does none of your work. So I'd say watch out for that to migrate up here. Right now, they're all over it. I mean, you'll usually get help from escrow. A lot of times it's when they're auditing the file right at the end of the deal, they're gonna go, hey, what happened to these other 4 things you're supposed to do? We're trying to fund today. Like, you better hurry up. But if you guys are using Sky Slope and Angie and all that stuff. So hopefully that's helpful too. Little transaction management is not right now. You're not.
Now they've had the training with themselves.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's right. Angie's paying me big bucks to come here. So you guys will get off her back. Bless her little heart. She should have not gone to her party. Right? That thing's really hanging on. We got 10:30. Paragraph 10. This is where when people say like, "Hey, do I have to do a TDS with that deal? Do I have to do an SPQ with that deal? Why do I have to do an SPQ with that deal? Like, what is going on here?" Paragraph 10. That's what's going on here. Paragraph 10 goes all the way to the next page. And that's where it talks about what kind of disclosures do you need generally. I mean, a lot of this is kind of general, and they're always throwing in unless otherwise agreed. But there are paragraph 10's heading starts with statutory because there are laws. You got to do your law stuff. You can't rob banks. Where'd David go? Statutory and other disclosures, including lead-based paint hazard disclosures and cancellation rights. So it talks about what disclosures you need in certain particular transactions others do. And then talks about like, so if you don't like something on the disclosure, can you get out of this deal? So let's see. So the quiz questions would be, because this is everybody's, Judy's done deals and everybody else has been coming to class. Lynn's done deals. Red tends to look the other way. Trina's trying to do a VA deal. Hurry up with that. I want to find out what happens. You don't have to unmute yourself. I answered my questions.
We're just waiting for them to get back to us.
Okay, good. All right. They only have one day, right? Aren't you done today with all those time frames?
Today's the day that they're taking a look to see which one wins. So.
Okay. So don't answer this. Class, what time does, it's a seller multiple counter offer and the seller has to pick one today. By what time today do they have to do that? 5 p.m.
Unless they mark something else.
Unless otherwise agreed. How about that now? Look at that. Well, my work here is done. Goodbye, everyone. Goodbye, Trina. Goodbye, Dave. So, the only fight I ever won with CAR was the one about the Abbott. So the seller has, seller shall within the time specified in paragraph 14A. What's the default time frame for seller stuff in paragraph 14A? Which in the other contracts is conditions. Anybody? 3 days. Anybody? Seller stuff. 7, did you say 7? 7.
I said seven.
Did
7.
you say 7? I couldn't hear you.
Or unless otherwise changed.
Unless otherwise agreed, right? Yeah, unless otherwise agreed. So when people, that's what used to really disappoint me. Can't say stuff like frost. When people would say, oh, well, they still got the 17 days. You mean the inspection period? That could be any number you want. Stop saying 17 days. And now I even say 17 days if I'm able to just eat it. So the seller has 7 days to do an enormous amount of work, which is basically all of paragraph 10. Is there somebody else in this transaction who's not a principal who has, unless otherwise agreed, a 7-day deadline for something they have to do? Is that a vague enough question to not give away the answer?
Right.
Regarding disclosures, the listing agent, right? What do they have to do?
What do I get? I know the answer.
I don't know. Your breakfast is in the kitchen. What do you want from me? Is that tea warm enough?
Yeah, I could use a refresher.
Oh, okay, good. You know what, Mackenzie? Where'd you get that cup?
Is that the Yeti cup?
That's the Yeti cup. Yep.
Is that Gary's Yeti cup?
There's a song about that years ago, like back in the 60s, somebody used to be mine. Yeah, okay. I don't know what to give you. Nothing. You know the answer.
Yes.
Bragging rights, that's what you get.
They have to do the Abbott.
They have to do their Abbott, right? What's an
Or
Abbott?
they have to mark that they're not going to do it.
They have to fulfill their disclosure obligation, right? And if they don't, so what? Does it
TDS
affect
isn't valid.
the what?
The TDS is not valid.
The TDS is valid, but it's not
Complete.
It's not complete, and so you have to deliver a complete TDS, so it's not delivered. And if the TDS and now we know it's the TDS and the listing agent's Avid, is delivered late, does that affect the transaction?
Yes.
It does. How so? I love this class.
I love this clause.
I love this class. Did you win one on this?
I will.
I will. You just helped the buyer quite a bit by delivering your Avid late. How so?
It's material fact, they get additional time.
They get additional time to review it. So the 17 days, now I'm even saying it, the 17 days is up, you know, they've waived all their contingencies and all that junk. And then something shows up, something's on the TDS they're not too sure about, and then your Avid shows up about 3 days before it closes. They can kill that deal right there. Yep, so let's stay on top of that stuff. Right? What about the buyer's agent? When is their Avid due? A or B, doesn't matter.
Is
Before it close.
Yeah, you gotta do it sometime, right? Yeah, there were agents that were going, I'm gonna hold back on my Avid then, I'm gonna expand my buyer's investigation period. Like, no, you're not the buyer's agent, we pretty much don't care about you. When should you do it?
Within a week of close.
Pretty soon, right? I mean, within a week of close, anybody else have a different idea? I mean, it's kind of an opinion.
well, my last one, I got it in 3 days before close.
You guys got enough of you.
No, Gary, we just had a recent transaction where the buyer's agent said it's not required, he doesn't have to fill it out. So straight, there's only one exception for not having to do an Avid, and that's on a new property, rental property.
No,
No.
if it's on the TDS, so if it's not on the TDS, it's not required.
He's talking about the
They
buyer's
don't
agent.
check
I'm
them
talking
off.
about buyer's agent.
Well, so, yeah, I'm gonna hate myself for saying this, but the Avid is not required. It's not statutory form. It's like, you don't have to do an Avid, but you are legally required to perform a diligent visual inspection. So I think the Avid's like the greatest form there ever was. It's like basically a floor plan of a house. You're just walking through the house, and I'm at the door, look around, write something down. I mean, it's like the greatest roadmap to safety I think they ever made. But can you check the box on the TDS and just, there's 3 boxes, right, on the TDS. See attached Avid, agent notes the following or something like that, because we never check that box anymore because we're better than that. And the other one is agent pretty much doesn't care. I forgot what it says, but agent notes no items or some junk like that. They can check that box on the TDS there that says, I don't know anything. I looked, but I don't, you're fine. That's it. They're done. Nobody has to do an Avid. In fact, the listing agent doesn't have to do an Avid. If they fill out that paragraph
Get a lot of misinformation
in the
on this.
TDS, you're hitting the straight shit.
All right, buddy. So all cash offer.
That doesn't matter. Yeah, doesn't matter what the terms are. Doesn't matter what the terms are. It only matters who owns it.
To write an offer, I do not have to go to an app.
For this company, you do. Right, Mom?
Does the state of California Bureau of Real Estate or the Business Professions Code or the police going to make you do an Avid? No, but your boss sure as hell.
So as buyer's broker, if you fill out section 4 on the TDS, you don't have to do an Avid
Yeah, if
according
you
to
got
this.
somebody that's just too smart for the Avid and they come from a Santa Maria company, which is where you're going to find it.
3 times.
Yeah, right?
I don't
They're
do
gonna check
Avids.
that box. We don't do Avids
That's what
down
he
here.
said.
Avids are crap. Oh, you mean Avids help you do your job better? Yeah, that's crap.
Yeah,
Santa Maria,
he said,
you're not gonna find that anywhere
he said,
else.
I won't do them. I said, whatever.
Yes, you don't have to.
I
Yeah,
did mine.
If they do that, is it 4, paragraph 4? Were you looking at?
Paragraph, I'm going to glasses
I
on.
think, yeah, thank you.
2,
Yeah.
halfway down. Nothing stated herein relieves a buyer's broker, if any, from the obligation to conduct a reasonable, competent, and diligent visual inspection of the accessible areas of the property and disclose on section 4 of the TDS or the Avid.
Hey, how you doing there, kid?
Good, how are you?
Hey, you're at escrow with Linda. You guys have met, right?
Are you Aaron?
Aaron.
Yeah, hi.
Yeah.
It's so nice to meet you.
Hey, everybody.
Giving her a little tour.
We're just gonna say hi to Aaron, because Aaron, if you guys knew who Aaron was, you'd all stand up. I'm
Oh,
just, I'm
yeah.
telling you right
Aaron
now.
rocks, we like her.
That's right. Aaron made me what I am today. Like, I'm sorry, Aaron, I'm sorry.
Oh, I don't like her so much. So back to when the avid has to get done or should be done, it's like, I always do it when the home inspection is done. It's like, why wouldn't you get it done during the inspection period?
I mean, especially, right? Right, what, why,
Because if you
wait.
see something and you're out of your contingency period, it's like,
right? Oh, hey, I just found this out, right? Yeah, I'll tell you, that's why you're here. I just found this out, Mr. Buyer, and this is like, this is not good, you know, did you know they had a septic tank? No one knew that. So you go,
And what?
oh my God, septic tank. No one knew these. I've seen this like a million times. No one knows they have a septic tank. The kids inherit the house. Somebody go, I don't know, we live in Los Angeles. Septic tank, what are you talking about? You got a septic tank. Somebody probably ought to deal with a septic tank, or you at least ought to know that you're on a septic tank, you're not on the sewer. You know, no TDS, no nothing. So the buyer's agent finds out, hey, there's like a huge thing here, and you really need to know this. Well, some new information has come to light, and that's going to affect the buyer's decision to buy the property or not. But it didn't come from the seller or the listing agent or anybody, and the anybody on that side of the transaction, and you've already waived all your contingencies this morning. There might be screwed. They just might. Now, there's, you know, the right attorney is going to win that deal in favor of the buyer because the judge is like they lean toward the moms, they're going to lean toward the buyer a little bit. Generally speaking, that's what I'm hearing lately. So, yeah, I think that's a good example that you just brought up. There's no reason to wait. Like, why wait? And, you know, if you got to let the home inspector and all that stuff in anyway. Now, what I found out was doing it when the home inspector's there, and that's kind of the way we always did it. We're all going to be there that day. The home inspector's going to be there early on, right? Because he's got to get done before your contingency period's up.
Right.
So we're wandering around with the home inspector, and he says stuff. Now you know stuff. Something he found something. He was in there going, he's in the bathroom, like, this happens all the time. You'll hear him in there jiggling the toilet, like, the toilet's loose. Do you know now that the toilet's loose? That guy just wiggle it in front of you. The toilet's loose. Do you have to, and this is kind of a nuance, do you have to put that on your app?
I would.
I mean, if you're visually seeing it, why wouldn't you disclose it?
Why wouldn't you? Yeah.
It's not disclosed. I mean, it's not hidden behind a wall or nothing like the inspector.
Well, it's probably
It's
going
not
to
under
show
the
up.
house.
It's probably going to show up in the home inspection, right? And we get some protection with this whole Avid deal. We should have done the disclosure class. We get some protection because if the buyer has you've got some reports from the seller and you've hired some inspectors, whatever was in all those reports, if you missed it, you're still okay. Like, what the hell did I miss the other day on some of those 2 houses? I missed something on one of them. I freaked out yesterday because I thought, oh shit, was the power off when I was out there? But the inspector had shut it off because it scared him. So he goes, I'm just killing the power. Like, don't go in that house. Okay, thanks. It's back to report. But if they find, it says in all these forms, you know, unless they find that out somewhere else, like, you're pretty much on the hook. Well, if they found that out somewhere else, that's a huge help. And if you double down on it, like, I think you're looking pretty good now. Yeah, and if you know it, just put it. Why split hairs? Just put it down. Right?
If it's on the Avid, it says exactly what you're allowed to look at and what you're not.
Yeah, the entire
Agent.
first
So
page.
if it's other than that, I won't put it down
because
because that's not me crawling under that house. I'm not taking his word for it. You can take pictures.
You're not supposed to open it with
No, you can't open cabinets. You can't move pictures. You can't move furniture. You can't
do
fill up the
visual
rug.
It's a diligent visual inspection of the accessible areas of the property. You have to open the door to do it. Now, will I open the door of every single under sink cabinet in that house? Every time.
You do, Gary.
Every time. That's about the only stuff like that I'll be doing.
Well, I do for garbage disposals. Because this gal says,
I'm looking for like
Termites and
stains.
stuff.
No, not termites. I don't know what termites look like.
black spots.
I know what a black spot on a piece of white wood looks like. It's darker than the white.
But it's not mold.
About as smart as I am.
He said black stuff.
Yeah, there's like a stain. Yeah,
A stain, yeah.
yeah.
I had to remind Erin that I don't have her Avid, speaking of.
Right. So that was nice, right? You got your TDS already? What's going on
I
there?
have the TDS and SPQ,
That's
but I
right.
don't have her Avid, so. And our contingency period is supposed to be
Did she
done
swear?
today, but.
Did she swear?
What?
Did she swear?
No.
Okay, good. Aaron's getting a lot better.
Yeah, you just said that. I showed a house Monday, and the closet, the walls are white, and the closet is black and real hairy, about that long.
Yep.
And he goes, "That looks like mold." I said,
Who said that?
"The prospective buyer."
Oh,
And I said, "Well," I said, "you have to have a professional decide that.
Yeah.
I can't."
that bothering you? Like,
Bothered me a bit.
all right.
But it was like
There's
4
some black,
inches,
hairy looking
4
stuff.
inches hairy hanging off the ceiling in the closet.
The way you described it to us, that's what I do. I did a diligent visual inspection, Your Honor, and all I could say was black and hairy. The owner's gonna look out into the kind of.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I'm not gonna do it.
Yeah, I
I'm not
know.
gonna do it. Don't do it. All right. So, do you have to do an avid? Do you have to do an avid? I bet you do. I bet you do. That's right. I did look that up. That's where he got that. I don't know, because somebody had to ask me, and I told them, and that's where that came from. Yeah. You have to do an avid. I mean, as far as you know, you have to do an avid every single time. I don't care what it is. That's just a good rule of thumb. It's like, you have to do an avid? Yes. Is it legally? Yeah, you're welcome. Is it legally required and all that stuff? Are you gonna go to jail for not doing an avid if you complete your part of the TDS? No, and that's where these guys in Santa Maria and probably Bakersfield and parts of East Los Angeles, and I don't know if that's profiling or not, but that's where that crap happens. I don't know why that is. Some kind of brotherhood of, you don't tell me what to do, I'm not doing that. I don't care what you say. They're not going to do them. And they're right. We don't do avids. We don't have to. You're right. You don't have to. If anything happens, I bet we win. I bet we trounce you. Dumb. Just saying.
I think you'd want to be more, of an advocate for your buyer or seller, and
You
have
think?
more visual. Once you,
What do you
that's what you get paid
Well,
for.
I don't know. I don't really want any responsibility. You getting paid, dork? I mean, what are you getting paid on this deal? I don't know, $800,000 escrow, like $16,000, $20,000, $40,000. You can't go look.
Half an hour.
I'm not writing anything down. I might do that. Who knows? Go figure. But they're right when they go, we don't do them, we don't have to. But you got to do something. When they show up with no marks on the TDS and no avid, they broke the law. The law is the agent, and it's the law. It's civil code that the agent has to do a diligent visual inspection every single time. Bank repos, trust, probates, I don't care what it is, you're going in there. And we did hear David Compton give us a pretty good.
Not on land.
Not on land, right? Yeah, we're talking residential 1 to 4, right? You're also not doing it on the new Costco building you just sold to Walmart. Yeah, that's not happening. Can. When stuff is not required, it's not prohibited. That's what we've told guys with trusts and all that stuff. You're not required to do a TDS or an SPQ, for instance, in this particular situation. But you can. It's a great form. You know what? Maybe you want to look at it. Maybe that would be really helpful, because the law is you have to say everything you know. If you know something and it has anything to do with the desirability of the property in the buyer's eyes or the law or anything like that, you have to say, aren't these forms a good guide to help you figure out what to say? I mean, you could present it that way. You can wind up with a TDS and an SPQ in every single deal if you wanted to. Not required does not mean prohibited. They are not barred from doing it. Now, most attorneys will tell you got to be careful with the over disclosing, and I'll just throw that in because I've heard that a million times. Like, if you don't have to do one, don't do it. And I'll get TDSs and SPQs and stuff like that from attorney's office. They're typed all over the front. I think they put them sideways in the memory writer and they just type on them. They go and they'll put in there, seller is exempt from this form, seller is exempt from that form. And they want those forms in my deal. They want to push the issue that we don't have to do that. But you can if you want. Any questions on any of that stuff? Or? No. So everybody does avids here, Bob, or what do you do? Yeah, company policy. Yeah. So there's laws, and it's just like being at home. Like there's the law, and there's like your mom, right? So like, I don't have to do that. Governor Brown said so. Whip your. I'll show you. We're going to go see Governor Brown. We'll start on in. I told you, you do an avid. Boy, that's right. Bob's right there is. Because I had to look that up lately, because somebody asked me, like, is there an exception for an avid? So I'm just going to tell you, no, No, there isn't. No. Okay, there's one. You don't get to find out what that is until you get in that transaction. Just do your avid. Oops, too many avids. Good for you. You're not prohibited. You can still do it. And now we're going to let the cat out of the bag. The one time you don't have to do it is new construction, when there's a public report, there's a nuance. Yeah. The state of California steps in and handles the disclosure obligations for the agents and the seller in new construction where none of the lots or houses or anything are reselling yet. It's for when the builder is selling a house to a buyer that's new construction with a public report. The public report is kind of the buzzword for it's the commissioner's public report from the Bureau of Real Estate. They do the most useless document I've ever seen, which doesn't say crap and it has stupid stuff on it. And they go, everybody's off the hook on a disclosure because we covered it. Like, what town is this even in? Those public reports are horrible, but read them. And NHD and all that stuff is in here in paragraph 10. Paragraph 11, also one of my favorites. I've got 3 more minutes and 3 more pages. I can do this. Paragraph 11, when the sellers go, I'm telling you, Ben, we're selling this thing as is, boy. That's correct. All the deals we do are as is. Let me bring your attention to paragraph 11 of the residential purchase agreement, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. Unless otherwise agreed in writing, the property is sold as is in its present physical condition as of the date of acceptance. They're all as is. So what changes is the buyer hires a guy and goes out there and says, I think I want to tell you what as is. You got some problems. I think you need to fix them. So that's where that whole repair thing comes from. But paragraph 11 says, and there's no check boxes or anything. You'd have to actually override this paragraph somewhere else in, like Ben said, in an addendum or something. Property sold as is in its present condition as of the date of acceptance. And then they'll put stuff in contracts like, and you got to get all your junk off the property. It's right there. As is, present condition, as of the date of acceptance, which that's important. Not the day we went and saw it before the neighbor kids broke all the windows. The day we got the offer accepted. You just bought all them broken windows. Maybe I can push that issue. Subject to buyer's investigation rights. Always tell the sellers, you are as is, but you cannot stop the buyer from investigating, and I really don't know why you would. What kind of a pig in the poke are you trying to sell these people? Do you think you're a bank? You're going to try to make somebody take junk and just not tell them it's junk? You better let them look. Let them look. Let them turn this place inside out. I don't care how many inspectors they want. My advice to you is let them in. I mean, worst case, you just got a whole bunch of free reports. Because does the buyer have to give the seller copies of their reports? They do. They do. Good head nodding.
Yeah, but in a hot market in a great location, a seller just be like, yeah, this is the price. I don't want anyone coming on this property. First person with cash to go in escrow wins. I mean, right.
Well, I mean, they could have it, but
They can ask for it, but why wouldn't you protect your buyer by still having their investigation intact?
Because I mean, if the property's worth, $1 million and
You're
the
gonna
seller
advise
is
your
at
buyer,
$500,000.
screw it, don't look at it, just take it?
so is there a law?
Yeah.
Do you have to do an avid?
Yes.
Yes. Does the seller have to do a TDS? Probably. Seller have to do an SBU? Probably. None of this stuff
Like
lets them
home
out the
inspection
law.
and all that.
Yeah, so everywhere in this contract, it says that if you don't get a home inspection, you are laughing in the face of your broker. Yeah, that'll be the day you tell somebody don't get a home inspection. Unless you're selling a house to Butch Valco. Right? Butch goes, I got this. I don't really want to pay Gus. Yeah. Okay, I got a little forceful and that's good. Come on down. There's your boss right there, buddy.
To add on that, if at the end of the day, you're right, it is your client's decision. If they decide not to, there's a form to waive the inspection. So that is you telling them, I'm advising you to get it, but you're going against my advice, sign this form. So they can't come back to you and go, why didn't I get a home inspection? You didn't tell me to get one.
I told you to get one, you said no.
So
Yeah,
if
so
you, if you
Come back snivel.
selling $1 million property by $500,000, client's like, I don't care, I just want to buy it. Cool, sign this form that I'm advising you, get your home inspection, and off you run.
Yep.
It's against my best, it's against the brokers.
Yeah, you made your position clear, and that's the way when we used to run the files where I came from before, it was we had two things that needed to be in the file. If there wasn't a home inspection in the file, there had to be a buyer's waiver of inspection.
And that's how it is over here.
Yep. There you go. So yeah, don't let the market make you starry-eyed. I mean, you're there to be the voice of reason, kind of, because buyers get a little starry-eyed. And you want to screw up your deal? Let them screw up their deal. David's point is well taken. I mean, you can't tell the buyer, no, I'm not doing it. I mean, you can if you think it's really, really bad. I mean, you can say, look, I'm just saying I'm not comfortable with whatever you guys are talking about.
I try to get my buyers to do a home inspection.
Yeah, that's
No, they're not
basically
gonna do it,
like a
so I had them sign-
recommendation.
I
Is there
had
are
them sign a
people
release.
that are better than you at this that you can hire to have this done, and that makes sense.
And they come back sniveling because they didn't have an
Well,
inspection.
you can always pay to get one done if your buyer doesn't wanna do it. You can always pay for a home inspection.
You could, if that's the only thing keeping them from doing it, like you got a VA guy you had to give him $50 for a deposit or something. Yeah. You could.
Well, their husbands.
We used to, at the old place, we had to have the agents pay for NHDs. If we had a seller that wouldn't put an NHD in the deal, there's some responsibility shouldered by listing agents, and potentially, there's a lot of nuances in that law, and potentially buyer's agents without the NHD report in there. When the NHD report is missing, then you have to rely on the NHD statement, which is legally required in most deals. It's a codified statement full of questions. Got to answer the 6 questions, and everybody signs it. So that's why we've always deferred to the NHD report. So it's like, you know what? No, they're in. We don't know. We don't know where the hell the gas line is, or any of that kind of junk. We let those guys handle it. And we had a deal where bank repos, didn't matter what, if it was an exempt transaction. I don't know how I was getting away with it, but we required them in the file period where I used to work. That was it. I don't care. There's an NHD in there. I don't care who pays for it. The agents used to pay for them all the time. Fortunately, they're cheap. Home inspections $500. The NHDs are like $99, much better.
Who performs NHD?
It's a report compiled by basically experts. Nobody goes out. There is no site visit or none of that stuff. And it's last one I got was 42 pages. You could get it. And then paragraph 12, and then we'll end, talks all about the buyer's investigation of property and matters affecting property, affecting property. It talks about in here quite a bit about what you can do as a buyer, what we think you should do as a buyer, and then your cancellation rights and all that stuff. And also you can't screw up the house. The buyer has to indemnify and hold to something. The buyer can't have a bunch of people going in there just doing whatever they want. It's basically the buyer's on the hook if something happens to the house is the whole bottom end of that paragraph. Something that gets missed a lot in here is 12C, seller shall have water, gas, electricity, and all operable pilot lights on for buyer's investigations, and through the date possession is made available to buyer. Tripped over that clause a million times with people. Yeah, the home inspector goes in, everybody leaves, they kill the power and everything because they don't want to pay the bills. No, leave it on. You said in the contract you would leave it on. Leave it on. Okay. Any questions?
What's the primary objective of leaving the power on here?
So you can inspect the house.
Okay.
Well, I guess because the contract said you would. And the home inspector can't check the electric if it's off, But leaving it on through the date possession is made, to me, it makes the transfer easier. When they go in there and shut everything off, then you have to go in and turn everything on. I've seen them crack fireboxes and heaters and stuff like that from shutting it down and a month later turning it back on. I don't know why they do this whole wall of heaters to crack a firebox 9 times out of 10. If you don't shut them off and, kill everything, somehow they survive the transfer, I guess, because the pilot's still burning, I suppose. I don't know why that. You'd think the pilot's going to make a difference. Seems to. You're right. Might as well finish the page, right? Title investing within the time specified in paragraph 14, buyer shall be provided a current preliminary title report, which is an offer by the title company to insure the title and they're gonna insure some stuff, and there will be exceptions to coverage. So when you're reading the preliminary title report, what you want to read the NHD, make sure it's the right house. And the second page has got like a bullseye on a map. And if they found something they think affects that property, you put it on the map, and it's all color coded and stuff. It's kind of cool. So you can find out what the color code, what the key says that problem is. You can go look that problem up in there and like draw their attention to it. So don't just go, thanks for the NHD, bye. I've seen them miss half the property, put the wrong address on, send me the wrong one. You know, escrow's doing 15 deals an hour. They'll send your whole file goes to somebody else named Linda. I've seen like Mary Jane's go to the wrong Mary Jane. It just happens. You got a name like Bob, it probably happens a lot. No, you probably always get your stuff. So you want to read the prelim same way. Make sure it's the right house. Make sure they got the assessor's parcel number right. You know your lot and block and all that stuff, because everybody here pulls deeds. So it's right in the legal description. Make sure you got, I've seen them muff the map. It's like the address is right, assessor's parcel number is right, and it's parcel to map 27 recorded at book 20, page 14, and I saw them flip book 14, page 20, which is not even in the same part of the state. I mean, it happens.
Gary, is it required on listings, MLS, to put the actual parcel number?
I think so. The one I'm looking up has it on there.
Are you sure?
Uh,
I mean, does it have a number, or are you sure are you sure it's the parcel number? The reason I'm asking is there was a woman that I was trying to get, when it expired, I wanted it. And every listing I found under her name, she puts in a bogus parcel number. Every single one. And
Maybe she's just bad at it.
no.
Yeah, I think I think that's an excellent question, and I got to tell you, I forgot, but I think it's required because there were people that were for that reason, like for some reason they're going to keep you from.
You can't
oh my
follow
God,
it up.
that freaking address is in there.
Yeah, especially on
They
the
put in
piece of
9
property.
zeros.
Well, she'll put 1, then the rest is zeros.
So you go underneath.
So there
Well,
is no
you
such
can't-
book and
you can't
page in
find it.
either one of these counties that's 1 million. I think it is. I just can't
I
remember.
think
I'm
I've
pretty sure.
seen those in mobile homes sometimes,
Right.
because some of them don't have that.
Yeah, and there is, you got a new track, you might not have a parcel number yet. Mobile homes all have a personal property tax number that starts with 910.
These are
San
40
Luis
acre
County,
parcels.
Santa Barbara County.
You know, 40 acre parcels, there's no address because there's
All right.
no physical building there. So the county won't, Santa Barbara County will not give you an address if there's not a physical building on the property, or at least a permit pulled to build a house.
It's just what the APN number.
Just the APN number.
They could make it hard to find.
They do.
Yeah.
I mean, from first AM to everything else, it's still, you can't pull up a parcel number. Because the whole 240 acre parcels all look the same from aerial view, pretty much.
True. That can be a challenge. Let's see, so about that, yeah, the NHDs are, I've said this a million times, assessor's parcel number driven. So if you have 2 assessor's parcel numbers on your property, you need 2 NHD reports. Oh, back to the Avid, because I forgot that. If you have more than 1 unit on the property, do you have to do more than 1 Avid?
Yes.
You do. You have to do more than 1 TDS. You do. TDS and an SPQ and an Avid for every unit. You got 4 units. That's why the Avid says blah, 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 address unit blank. Yeah.
When you say unit, you're referencing a dwelling unit,
Yep. Right.
not just a storage.
Right. You don't have to do an Avid on a storage building in and of itself. Is it part of the property?
Residential.
You could.
Residential 1 to 4, and then anything over 1 to 4 becomes commercial.
5 units is you're off the hook on the app.
Cool, good stuff.
Yeah, 5 units changes everything. All right, and the prelims, that's all I have to say about it. Just make sure they're right. And the exception, oh, and don't forget to read the notes. There's exceptions to coverage. The next page after that it just says notes, and usually there's very seldom anything on there. Somebody's doing a deal a couple of years ago, and they were selling a vacant parcel that had a well on the neighbors, and they had an easement, or so they thought, because everybody thinks you got an easement when they don't. And title decided they could not find an easement. They knew somebody had said something about the well, and they could not find it. They knew where the well was and where the subject property was. couldn't find easement, so they put it in the notes, so we had to read all the way down into the notes to go, we can't find the easement everybody keeps talking about. So we had to actually, before it closed, do enough research to find out we can't either, but all the parties said, no, we wanted that, we don't know what happened, so we just had to make one.
On this subject, I ran into a
Anybody
situation.
dismissed it needs to go, because I guess we're done, we're just hanging out.
Thank you, Gary.
Yeah.
Me, I have to stay.
I had a situation where there was a encroaching lateral main on a property. And it ended up kicking, it was my neighbor's property, and then ultimately it ended up bumping out of escrow due to that fact. But anyways, I guess what my main question would be who's really ultimately responsible for a lateral main that encroaches on a property with two
So it's
separate?
either a lateral or a main, right? Laterals come off of mains, right? So like what, water, sewer, or what is it?
Yeah, so
Sewer? So that's.
I would say the homeowner to where it went to.
Well, it's the city. I mean, you can't put a lateral in, right? The
Well, but
city-
you're not supposed to, but it happens all the time in the Mesa. A lot.
we'll see, this lot was separated back in the day.
Yeah.
And two separate APM numbers were.
Well, was the sewer in before that?
I'm not for sure.
If it was, it's probably just grandfathered in.
Because it's my neighbor and he was trying to sell his property and my lateral main encroaches on his property and all of his roots and his trees were growing through my lateral main. So there was an issue with that.
Sure,
And,
though, yeah.
he was trying to sell the property. He ended up it fell out escrow because of me starting to squawk about the issues. And, ultimately, it's who's responsible for the lateral main.
Well, I would say that if it was a parcel and the sewer was put in prior to being split, it was probably the city dropped the ball or the developer dropped the ball, and when they split it, they should have known where the sewer line was going.
So as far as clearing the line, you gotta negotiate around it, but that's the municipality's line more often than not, so they're gonna wanna clear it a certain way and they're gonna handle it. And they may tell you, we have that on the schedule to work on that next year or something, anything like that could happen.
And I would assume we both share, common interest in the subject.
Probably not, no,
Not really.
that's not your pipe, that pipe belongs to whoever owns that sewer where that crap winds up. That ain't your
So
pipe.
I guess your property line.
I guess ultimately what I would need to do is abandon that lateral and keep it on my property, then tie into the, just abandon that, the pipe and tie into that
Big
lateral.
dollars.
See, that's
You're gonna have to go down to Maine and cut it off there.
That's
They won't let
15
you
feet
abandon.
down.
They won't let you abandon it on your property line.
It's his property.
So is anybody legally hooked to the sewer or not?
Yeah, and he is as well. But
Then
what I'm
that's,
saying is my 4-inch
Then I-
Hartford is encroaching on his property.
It's probably not an encroachment. I mean, I'm pretty sure there's an easement. Now, the only thing you might have there is an illegal subdivision. That property may never have been properly split. That happens. Where is it?
1282 Atlantic City.
Oh, in the city?
Yeah, it's
The
a
city
1270
sewer?
Atlantic City. That was in escrow, and then I started squawking, and it fell out.
Split was probably done right.
I might have put that in
It's kind of weird.
30 years ago.
You got the Orangeburg.
Oh, we did a lot. Orangeburg, Orangeburg.
Yeah,
sucked.
it does.
We did a lot of these up here.
I've dealt
Years ago.
with a lot of issues
But
with
they're
trees
15,
growing through
18
my
foot
pipes.
deep.
And I'm the plumber. My wife thinks I'm a
Yeah,
plumber.
city's probably got an easement. That's probably the city's pipe. That's pretty much their problem, I'd say. The times I've had, somebody go under the road or root some roots out or something like that.
That's what I would do with it.
Seller's obligation.
I installed a Y pipe just as close to the lateral as possible so I can actually get a snake in there with some.
You mean in your
Get a
pipe,
snake
not
play.
Well,
the
I went
city's
onto his
pipe.
property in my pipe, yeah, but had to go on his property and actually.
What's your pipe doing on his property?
That's what I'm saying. It's an encroachment.
Well, that doesn't sound like a lateral, then that sounds like your pipe.
Oh, yeah, it's my pipe.
We ought to move that.
But it ties into the
You're
lateral.
your pastor.
It's just
Okay,
pipe.
now we see
Now
what
we
the
trust
It's
that.
pipe at the property line. See, it's your pipe at the property line. It's usually how the cities work.
Right, it's not the property line.
But that's what I'm saying. It's between you and him. So if that's the case, and it legally, not that I know the legal law, from your house to the property line is yours. Normally, it goes from your property line to
I'm
the
hanging
city.
up, Trina, wherever you are.
Normally it goes into the city. But if it's going across his land, that's probably part of his now. See what it
It
is?
definitely clearly encroaches on his property.
Well, it may not encroach. I wouldn't use that term encroach, because that's.
Don't use the term encroach.
No, because if that was split after the fact.
Yeah, just because it's on there doesn't mean it's improperly on there.
Okay.
An easement eliminates an
That
encroachment.
right there is explaining my question.
Because if it was a parcel and somebody ran a line up there, I'm sure the owner of the parcel told him to do
I have no
it.
idea how to shut it off.
Right, but
Clearly, why
I
not?
went down the city,
Yeah,
and the
yeah,
lots
yeah.
are clearly defined,
Yes.
they have, you know,
They are
several
now.
lots.
They are now. They may not have been that Orangeburg. All Orangeburg is oil, creosote,
And
and
now
paper.
they are
Right,
selling
there's
it
Robert
as
Roberts
if
time
by
all
the
over.
That's all it is.
utility, by the using DRE.
What you need now is SR35,
The 4
where it's blue pipe,
Blue
green,
pipe.
light green,
Okay.
light green color.
That's what I needed to do.
It seems
Slice
to be kind of
But you gotta
illegal.
reach that.
Well, was it, what kind of building is it? What?
It's a big apartment building, you know, that on Southwood, you know, many apartments.
15 foot down
And this
by
is
that-
one of those
that there.
apartments.
And they converted them to
I can show you
condos?
like that.
Sure.
It's all sand, it's all sand. But sure,
Yeah, they probably, I think they did a condo conversion on that.
South on my own, one man. The city came.
So- When the subdivision happens, then you have an owner of the subdivision, right? So let's say Joe Blow is the owner of the subdivision. The first time he sells it, he has to do it the way the BRE or whoever was set up to sale. If they've never been sold, they have to use all that old stuff they were told to use a million years ago. If it's sold one time, then that whole public report, all that stuff's out of there. And
It
it's
was even 30 years later, I mean, using those DRE forms are so ridiculous, just.
Yeah, I'd say, I understand why they might be using them, but that's a legal question that's over my head. Because you think in those situations, they would build in a protection so that in case I did a subdivision when I was 20 and I kept it until I was 65, like maybe something has changed, maybe we need to look at it.
Go through that.
So it would stand to reason that somebody would put some protection in there, but it's hard to find.
But if my buyer
You
likes
could
it.
call it BRE.
Yeah,
That's what I do, because that's BRE, step BRE approval they're looking at. And just ask them, when you guys do that, does that last forever? Like, what are we doing? And they might go like,
No, 100
wait,
years later.
what?
Sure, you know, we could
We
leave.
need to talk to the guy. That's not gonna work. I've never seen them not get rid of that stuff as soon as they finish it.
They put it on MLS.
You better lay it back.
And I thought that condo conversion, I thought that was pretty new. Maybe it's been 30 years.
Yeah, your post top's supposed to be 45 foot
You're
back.
talking about the fall.
Yeah, slope, it's supposed to be 45 foot back away from your.
Yeah.
And sand.
That could be,
Or more.
yeah, south
Or
of
more.
that.
That's what you go, now you're 90 foot wide.
30 years later, same
Life gets
form.
complicated.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. When you write a contract on that, you think BRE would protect themselves too. And say like, okay, this approval is good for 5 years. Well, we've had to go in and renew public reports and amend them. So there's a process by which you fix it. I bet you you're right. I bet you that.
It's going through the sewage.
But you'll have to,
what I would do is.
have to talk to enough people to figure it out.
Right.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, that's all I know. And then let us know, like, maybe we'll know something by next week, that'd be awesome.
My grandparents bought that house for 35 grand.
Kind of.
I just need one that will be,
My sister.
at least maybe that one.
Crescent Ridge. Maybe I took all the tools out and put them in my pickup building, you know? Come to think of it. Yeah, usually I'm tooled up big time, but I put them all in the pickup to work.
Maybe 2 acres, maybe 3 acres.
Like 7, 10 acre parcel back in Sweet Canyon or something.
Working on my car, or right around my work schedule. And then I realized my whole week is way too busy to
Go to,
take apart,
go
park
to,
the car.
any kind of a map, I'll show you how to do this.
Everything
Google
else,
whatever.
I do it at night.
Google
It's what
Sweet
you can.
Yeah.
so since everything's out,
Google Sweet Canyon, I pulled down the camera.
Where's it off? Tipsy?
But I brought, it's at my,
Okay, so it's
at Jenny's house,
Okay.
and I brought just like a sausage set and like a few things. I was like, all right, I don't need that much. And then I realized I didn't bring like adjustable wrench.
She's built a house and he's building a guest
I
house,
can't
wine
find one at
cellar,
her
and all
house.
this crap.
They have to
We
have
don't know
it.
anything about how much it costs.
I
He bought one here a couple years ago.
Because what I'm
I
finding is there's a
found
lot of
one, actually I found
stipulations.
two, but
when you
one of
buy
them
a
was
large
broken
house
and
like
it's stuck
that.
at one of them.
Everyone
The
else
other
that
one's too
is
small.
investing in land homes do not want you to put two
And I didn't wanna drive all the way down to
the
Orchid to have one friend to come back at.
Yeah, any other time I would.
I'd have a slew of shit.
Well, no, put one,
I'd like it.
but just call it a main house.
Bigger than tiny house?
Yeah, and then the next house, call it the caretaker's house.
Oh, okay.
That's what I
That's
did.
all right, I got a lot of running around.
Even though the house is only
All right, well, thanks,
500
Gary.
square feet.
All right then, sorry about
See
that.
you guys.
See you.
No, no worries.
See you later, Doc. Good day.
Now, the riffraff's gone, no, I'm just kidding.
I know, right?
In about 5 years, I'm gonna list my property for sale. I'm gonna list it for probably a minimum of 2.5 mil. I'm gonna leave a whole bunch of
I'll
stuff there.
call for
that-
Trina on
all
her
in the process
property
of
she
moving.
just sold in the
So
Tascadero.
the stuff that's left outside the house, pipes, drain pipes, kind of thing, I'm talking 24-inch steel corrugated pipe. Should I try to include everything in there? I may sell the tractor with the property, because the tractor ain't big enough for what I want, so if I sell the property, that way they got a good tractor. So I guess that's
You
my question.
can, I mean, you can, we've done that, you know, these horse outfits and all that stuff, you know,
Yeah.
talking about what are you leaving, what are you taking, you know, does the buyer want it or not? The buyer says, no, I don't want that crap, get it out of here. You know, you gotta figure it out and then say, all right, I've done it before. We have, you know, like rental agreements where you rent the space around the house for 6 months.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. Well, I got 65 acres, so 2 homes on it.
Big enough. So my
So
mom
I'm gonna sell the whole
all the
thing.
way back from it.
Very nice.
Maybe
They
buy a
don't
place
like it.
closer to town or something, dump a little tiny.
Where's that?
And I thought
Mine's out on 166.
I'd you and see if you find.
Got 65 acres, two nice homes on it.
Radar.
The old state highway,
Two tiny houses on. I mean,
the old state highway,
the guest house.
but I'm gonna get
There's
that.
a one on
Possibly today.
There is.
that is 395.
Yeah, and there'll just be some negotiating. That's all. Tell them what you want and see how they feel about it.
It's funny, so there's an investor that's just sitting on it right now, there's already a house on it. And then there's, you can put it on there.
So with that tiny house, does that classify, would that classify as an EDU? Would that fall into an ADU, additional dwelling unit?
Tiny house as far as.
Have you seen those tiny houses they're building now?
No, that's not, that's personal property.
That's personal property because it's not on a pure beam foundation.
It's not an attached unit onto the house, so you can put it anywhere, so you can do an R1 lot and stick a tiny house on there. Somebody, it's just personal, it's like having a mobile or an RV basically.
Wouldn't you suggest that it would be more easy to do something like such in county versus city with all the ordinances and zoning would on?
Yeah,
So
you're not,
Oceano.
it's like, you gotta look at it almost like an RV, and so you can't really, you have to make, like in city, you're not gonna be able to set up shop in an RV or live in it. But county, you will be able to if you own right land.
Because I know they're doing a lot of,
The R2 lots, you can have additional units. and still be
Yes, I did.
yeah, I've been finding a lot of R2 lots.
And that's what that one is an R2 lot. Actually, it's a R3 lot.
R3, so you put 3
It's
units
big
on there.
enough for it.
Very interesting. But I thought I'd drop that with you because you're always looking.
So what do they not like about Reading?
You know, I think it was the speed of it. They love the beauty of it. But I think that it breaks down to the speed of it because they've been living in Hawaii for the past 8 years and they're pretty laid back, slow people.
Okay.
And, you know, this is their home and they just feel like being closer to me and their family that this is where they want to be. And I'm willing to go and even finance the difference because they have a lot of cash to put down. And I was willing to finance the difference underneath my credit.
Yeah. Reading is it's a retirement community, but it's definitely having its issues with unemployment and drug use out there right now.
I believe it.
And so.
As it is everywhere.
Certain areas, Reading is, and they drop convicts off in Anderson, which ultimately
Do they?
migrate over into
Oh,
Reading.
no.
So they're kind of getting beat up right now, and the city council's trying to clean that up.
I spoke with Josh Essengreener yesterday.
Oh, did you?
At the gym. You know, his mom had passed away a couple weeks ago.
Oh.
But I was trying to tread real lightly on
Sure.
real estate subject. But we had a good conversation, and he still is interested, so I'm planting these seeds and just watering on them. It's all taking people to accept the trips.
Well, he is a true salesman, so he'll expect.
Is he? You think he is?
Yeah.
Because I haven't been around enough, I kind of watch what he says, and
He knows how to
Kinda
do his follow-up. He knows how to do his marketing, and he
Yeah.
sells himself. So at the end of the day, he's a type A personality.
right, as I am, as you are.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll keep that in mind.
Thanks, David.
If you're on Facebook, the hub, you can put a note on there. Hey, I'm looking for a lot. If you come across anything, blah, blah, blah.
Facebook Hub, great idea.
And then that'll tell
And I
everybody.
got the forms that you sent yesterday, or actually Kristen sent them as far as the commission split forms underneath.
Oh, yeah, and I put that on the back end too. So if you ever do agent to agent type stuff, that's what you can. Well, what you're thinking.
She's like, no. She's like, you're a big boy. You need to do this.
Okay. Well, there's agents that's their business. It's a business model. It's a referral business model. All they do is they do online marketing and they get leads, and then they reference those leads out, and they get 25% is like $22 million.
Easy fix. I have all the parts. I have everything taken apart and sitting there.
No,
I just
still going. So it's not actually it's
It's not unseen.
and